Hi folks, and welcome to another Saturday morning Samoflange. Today we're going to talk about documentaries. That's right. Last month I said that I watched, or a couple months ago I guess now, it's been a while, I watched The Tiger King, and it was all the rage when it was a perfect storm, right? The pandemic hit, everyone was forced inside, didn't have anything to watch, and Netflix rolls out this documentary just at the right time where everyone gets to watch it. And it was all over social media. My wife was like, hey, we need to watch this. I was like, oh, okay, well, we'll give it a shot, I guess. I didn't know much about it, just like anyone, but she had heard a lot. And I was like, well, we'll watch a few episodes. And it was interesting. It's a big train wreck, right? All those people are just crazy. You're like, is this even real? And it was fun, but I started thinking about it, and I said, hey, what are the best documentaries I have ever seen? Now, spoiler alert, Tiger King is not one of the best ones. It was entertaining, but best? No. I don't even know if I'd put it in my honorable mentions. It was good. I enjoyed it. But when I look at a documentary, it's like, would I want to watch it again? No, I wouldn't. So that's why it wouldn't be in my top 5. The ones I have, some of them, a lot of them, I have watched again and will watch again. Some of them I've only seen once, but I said to myself, yeah, I would watch this one again because it was just so good. And, documentaries are supposed to be informative. Yes, they can be skewed. It's whoever's directing it, right? They give you their side of the story, so you are kind of looking at the movie through a forced perspective. But at the same time, documentaries can be interesting and, of course, entertaining as well, which these are. Now, I don't think I'm going to give any honorable mentions because I wrote down a few and I was like, I don't really, those were okay, but I'll never watch them again. So I don't think I'm going to do honorable mentions here. I'm just going to get right in it. So let's go with number 1. Number 1 is the documentary called Knuckleball. It basically follows pitcher R.A. Dickey, who at the time was the last knuckleballer in the major leagues. I'm talking baseball here. And if you don't know, a knuckleball is a very unique pitch where it looks like they're gripping the ball with their knuckles, which is where it gets its name. And it's a very slow pitch. It's not a fast pitch. It's a slow pitch. But the ball hangs. It doesn't spin, and it moves slow. And you're thinking, well, dang, I think everyone would hit that. Well, yeah, people could. But if you can throw a good knuckleball, you can throw that off-speed pitch there really throws off batters, and they can get really confused. And a good knuckleballer can have a very long career, I should say, in the major leagues. Now, this documentary is interesting on several levels. First off, I didn't realize that at the time. I think he was the only knuckleballer left in the league. And there's always been a knuckleballer in Major League Baseball for years, they were saying. And so they're waiting to see who is taking his place. Now, spoiler alert, today in Major League Baseball, I don't believe there is one single knuckleballer. I think R.A. Dickey is now retired, and there are no more knuckleballers. If I remember right, there's one in someone's minor league camp, but that doesn't count as major league. So we may have seen the end of knuckleballers. Why are they so rare? Because it's a hard pitch to master. Again, if you master it, you're going to be awesome. You're going to be Hall of Fame awesome. Tim Wakefield is just fantastic, and it saved his career. He was about to be bumped from the major leagues altogether, and he said, wait, I can throw a knuckleball. You can almost see him as they're strong-arming him toward the door. And so the coach says, okay, let me see it. And so he threw it, and that's what saved his career. He became a knuckleball pitcher after that, and a very good one, too. And so one thing I didn't know about this is, now of course, yeah, I'm a little biased here because I love baseball, right? So, a documentary on baseball is definitely going to get me excited. And when I saw Knuckleball, R.A. Dickey at the time, I think, was with the New York Mets. We had traded him very soon after because he had a fantastic season as a knuckleballer for us. He won the Cy Young and everything that year, which is, if people don't know baseball, that's a big pitcher's award. And so he was really good. And I was like, oh, man, this is awesome. We got a great pitcher. Let's trade him. I wanted him off the team because his trade value was really high, and we had other needs. We needed some offense. And we did trade him. It was a great trade we got. And we gave him over to the Toronto Blue Jays, and then he just didn't do as well. Not as well as his brilliant season he had. He was still a good pitcher, but he'd lost some of his magic. And that's the thing. It's dangerous as your knuckleballer to lose that mojo. And again, I can't explain it, but the documentary does a much better job explaining the difficulties of throwing that and perfecting it and how it is so effective against batters, so many batters. It's a pitch that they don't see that much, so they don't know how to hit it. And it confuses a lot of people. Even when you know you're going up against a knuckleballer, they can still get you at the plate every time. So R.A. Dickey, pretty good guy, is talking about how Tim Wakefield is at this, I think at the point of the video he was retiring or had just retired. And so R.A. Dickey was going to be the last one left. And they were just talking about this long lineage. Now, another cool thing about it is that I didn't know is that each one of these Major League Baseball players who pitch a knuckleball, they all are friends. Like Phil Niekro, Hall of Famer, he will reach out when he finds Tim Wakefield made it to the majors. He reached out to him and says, "Hey, Phil Niekro here. Yeah, let me know if you need any help." And they watch each other's games too. Like Tim Wakefield will watch R.A. Dickey's games, call him after the game and say, "Hey, you need some advice here? Looks like you threw it a little. It looks like you lost your grip a little bit like this, or you're grabbing it too hard, or your arm movement was off." I mean, they're all giving tips. The knuckleballers are, because a pitching coach has a problem teaching a pitcher how to pitch a knuckleball. That's not really something. Remember, it's rare, so it's not really something that it's in their repertoire. I mean, I'm sure they could show you a few things and teach you a few things, but a knuckleball is still foreign. People who throw knuckleballs professionally and have for their career, they're your best advisors here. And so basically anybody who's pitched a knuckleball in the past will give you their number and will stay in contact with you and help coach you, even if you're on opposing teams, I guess, because you're a knuckleballer, you're a fellow knuckleballer, you're in the knuckleball club. And I'm going to say, and I know people are saying, "Oh man, baseball? No thanks, Matt. Skip, pass, don't like baseball." I think this is, and I think all of these documentaries transcend the subject matter that they're addressing. What I mean by that is you don't have to actively enjoy baseball to enjoy the documentary Knuckleball. I think Knuckleball is a great documentary that holds up on its own, and it's just so fascinating. And I'm ready to see another knuckleballer enter the league, because eventually it'll work. Someone else will perfect it and they'll move back in. And again, the thing about a knuckleball is it preserves your arm. Pitchers, they have shorter careers because their arm gives out. They're chucking that ball in at high speeds all the time. Eventually, your arm is going to give out and you can't throw as much. And then you're out of you have to retire. But for a knuckleballer, they can last a little bit longer because they're not throwing as hard. So you see knuckleballers into their 40s, which is, early 40, my age, which is ancient. If you're baseball, you're an old man at this point. And there aren't that many people in their 40s playing baseball unless they're knuckleballers or incredible, superhumans like Nolan Ryan, I mean, goodness gracious, what was he, like 45 when he retired or something? I mean, goodness gracious. And he was still pitching 100 at the time. Fun story with Nolan Ryan, just to tell you what a freak of nature he is. Back, oh gosh, it's now over 10 years ago, if you can believe that, in one of the World Series. About this 10 years ago now, he threw a pitch. He was in he had to be in his 60s by then, and it clocked in at 81. And they were laughing. They said 81. That's, Major League Baseball pitchers can, when they're gassing, they'll pitch in the low 80s or high 70s. And he just threw one in the 80s. And they talked to him afterwards and said, "Hey, that was a pretty peppered pitch. Is that your top speed?" He went, "I reckon I could go a little bit faster." I was thinking, dang, I think Nolan could have reached 90-mile-per-hour fastball into his 60s. And he was out of shape, too. So not everyone is going to be just this, unbelievable, superhuman when it comes to baseball. But knuckleballers do have the ability to maintain their, abilities well into their 40s and last and have a longer career, which, as you know, if you're good at what you do and you're still playing Major League Baseball, I mean, heck, even a base salary for Major League Baseball, I think, is right at $750,000 right now. Not too shabby, if I don't say so myself. But a lot of these people are getting paid way more than that, at least a couple million. So it's just really intriguing to watch. And I don't know. I didn't check. I should have checked on this, but I didn't know. I don't know what's streaming and what's not. But surely on Hulu or Netflix or Amazon Prime, Knuckleball is available for free. And if so, you should definitely check it out. Okay, my number 4 was one that got hyped on CNN, I think, or MSNBC. I can't remember. And they kept talking about it. And when it was going to premiere, and I was like, I don't know what this garbage is, and I never watched it. And then it popped up on Netflix or something, I can't remember, maybe Amazon Prime. I said, I'll go ahead and watch this. I didn't have anything to watch, and so I got to see Three Identical Strangers, and I've been telling everyone about this ever since I watched it. It's phenomenal. It's based on the true story, obviously, of this guy who goes onto this campus. It's in the early 80s, I believe. And everyone, it's his first year on campus, but everyone is like giving him high fives. Girls are kissing him, welcoming him. He's like, wow, this is a really nice campus. I mean, they're really welcoming me here. This is what a friendly campus. And then he goes in to see his new roommate, and his roommate looks at him and pauses for a minute, and he's like shocked when he sees him. He goes, what's your name? And he says his name. He said, do you know, and he says someone else. He went, no, I don't know that guy. He said, do you have a brother? He goes, no. He went, I think you do. And it's the story about these triplets. And it's so wild how they find each other slowly. First, two of them find each other, and then later on, when they're all in the news about these twins separated at birth, never knew about each other, there's a third guy who realizes, oh my gosh, these guys look just like me. Are we triplets? And it turns out they are. Now, it doesn't end there. The thing that I love about this documentary is, and there's a lot of video footage of, because they got on, the difference with them is they got on TV a lot back in the 80s. So they have tons of video footage of them doing multiple interviews. And they have tons of photos with them together and some video footage of them, because they, back then you took home videos of your family, and especially on big moments like finding your brother. So a lot of these great moments are captured on video, which is another reason why the documentary is so friggin' engaging. But the thing that makes it special is the twist that you do not see coming. I mean, and these were revelations that weren't just revealed for dramatic effect, but chronologically speaking, they just kept peeling back the truth, and they kept finding out more about why. Because the big question is, hey, and in fact, the parents and go to the adoption agency over this and said, hey, if you knew there were three of them, why didn't you tell us? And the adoption agency said, well, back in the day, in the 60s, we're thinking no one's going to take three kids, so we'll just break them up. We won't tell the parents. And the families are mad. They're furious. All three families involved. They're like, we would have taken all three children. this is ridiculous. How dare you separate them from themselves? I mean, here they are in their, late teens, and they just found each other. This is so wrong. You're so wrong for this. And they're like, oh, well, it was the past administration. They did this. They made that call. We were sorry about this. And so they all leave. And one of the guys, one of the husbands says, oh, man, I left my umbrella. So one of the parents goes back to get his umbrella. And what he sees is that the whole board of that adoption agency breaking out champagne glasses and toasting, and saying things like, that was a close one. I can't believe we just pulled that off. Meaning they lied to the family. They knew they separated them on purpose. And that, I'm going to stop right there, because I could ruin this whole documentary for you, but I'm not. That doesn't ruin anything. I think that was even revealed in the preview, if I recall. But that's where the mystery starts unfolding, where you're realizing some of these coincidences, they come because they have a lot in common. And they find out some of these coincidences aren't coincidences at all. And it just gets bigger and bigger. And it's really good. And I know I have seen that on a streaming service, because I watched it, because I was like, oh, it's that CNN or MSNBC one that they hyped up so much. I went, well, let me watch it, And so I finally gave it a shot, and boy, howdy, was it good. So Three Identical Strangers, I do highly recommend that. I do think it's pretty awesome. All right, number 3 is kind of a twofer here, and meaning there was a sequel to this documentary, and even though I do like the first one better, I did enjoy the sequel to it because it was slightly different. And this one is not a surprise to anyone. I think it went out in theaters and it got a lot of traction. At least the first one did. The second one came out without any fanfare, but is pretty good. And that is Super Size Me. Morgan Spurlock's masterpiece, right? Super Size Me. Back when he sat down and ate McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 30 days. This is back in the days of the will you supersize my fries and drink, which they don't do anymore because of this documentary. And a lot of people said, okay, that documentary is a little excessive. Who would eat out for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. No one. And they wouldn't eat fast food every time either. Well, a lot of people actually do live this way. And the other thing was, and I've heard it pointed out, the very beginning when he's eating, he vomits it all up because it's just so nasty. No, he vomited it all up because he was vegan prior to doing the documentary. Morgan Spurlock was, and he wasn't used to eating meat, and that's why he was throwing up. Now, again, I fully realize that these people embellish on their documentaries, or they want you to see it from their forced perspective. So you always got to keep an open mind on that. But it really was fascinating to watch someone eat fast food 3 times a day and always supersize if they asked, and just to show you how unhealthy this fast food is. Now, you're thinking, well, duh, we already knew that. Yeah, it was just a social experiment he did, and then he got super popular over it, right? He made a bunch of other documentaries that were okay. One was The Greatest Movie Ever Sold. I just recently watched that one. It's good. It talks about how, product placement works in movies. I didn't find anything too fake about that. In fact, the movie industry should be opened up enough about it, because you're talking to directors and everything, and they're telling you straight, how it is. Yeah, we put product placement in there. That's how you pay for movies these days. And but it was interesting to see how it works. And I guess it just wasn't groundbreaking for Morgan Spurlock. Sorry, I just had acid reflux there. Holy cow. My eyes are tearing up now. Glad I'm not doing this on video. Holy cow. Anyway, Morgan Spurlock's basically not showing you anything you don't know. He's just kind of showing you an inside look, a peek on how the business operates, which I did appreciate. Plus, regardless of what you feel about the man, he is funny. And I'll be honest, there's probably more humor in Greatest Movie Ever Sold than any of his other documentaries. So for that reason, it is a fun one to watch. But after seeing it, I knew that I was not going to want to watch that again. Super Size Me, I've seen twice, and I will probably watch again. I just find it fascinating. It was a different time for the supersized drinks. I remember when supersized drinks came out. I was thinking, holy cow, why don't you just give me a 2-liter bottle of Coke? I mean, this is just enormous. Who would drink all this? I remember that's when I started ordering small, and I still order small drinks because I can't even finish a small size. A small size is what a large size used to be back when I was a kid. I remember what small meant. Small meant kid size back then, and then medium was in between and large was big. But nowadays, at the least, I think a small drink counts as a medium drink back in my day. But a lot of those small drinks are now large drinks. I'm like, holy cow, because I can't finish any of those large drinks at all. That's why I love those little mini cans of soda, because that is just the right amount of soda that I will drink. I will nurse. Anyone who knows me, I like my sodas, but I will sit there and nurse a can of Coke or whatever for hours because I just can't drink it all down in one gulp. I mean, not even if I'm super thirsty, I'm going for water, because that Coke, even though, it's a nice refreshing Coke, yeah, no, it's not that refreshing as water is to me. And I make sure to drink, big old, I got my big whatever gallon of water for the day cup, that huge mug that you sometimes see me on live Q&As with. And I drink one of those at the first of the day, and then after I'm done, I'll have a Coke. But that I'll just sip till I go to bed almost. Anyway, but I remember those Super Size Me drinks. I was thinking, man, that is enormous. So Super Size Me was a real eye opener for me. Really enjoyed it. And then he did the sequel, Super Size Me 2. Now it was a YouTube exclusive video at first, and now I think it's pretty much everywhere. And it got delayed for several years because he got involved in a Me Too scandal, I think. But anyway, Super Size Me 2 is really good because instead of going after the beef industry, he switches his focus on the chicken industry and kind of how chickens are grown, and they're artificially grown. They're artificially grown to grow really fast and to die and have as much meat on their bones as possible. Now, my dad and I actually know someone who is heavily involved in the chicken industry. That he's worked for the big ones. I can't Southern Pride or whatever pride it's called, Tyson, all the big chicken companies. This guy has worked for a couple of them. He knows the inside scoop. And my dad, of course, after we watched this, Morgan Spurlock's basically trying to open up a fast food chicken place. And so he's trying to grow chickens as much as he can. And he's talking about how cruel chicken farmers can be and how the rules are kind of silly and stupid. And it is true that you can put whatever label you want on a chicken thing, like no hormones, added, no growth hormone added. Yeah, that's because it's illegal in the U.S. That's why there's no growth hormones added. But they don't tell you that. If they say farm fresh, basically they can just label it farm fresh. There's no one. The FDA is not coming down on them for making. I mean, if it gets too outrageous, like, this will, improve your health or whatever, and it really doesn't, they'll come down on that. But all these other farm fresh, 100% gluten-free or something like that, it's just ridiculous labels that they put on that. Like, yeah, of course it's gluten-free, it's chicken or whatever. And I just found that really interesting. But our buddy told us that I do respect, and I do know he knows what I'm talking about. He said the movie does falsify a few things. For instance, farmers aren't that cruel. They're talking to a farmer who is basically stepping on baby chickens. And like, whoops, oh well, it doesn't matter, it's just a chicken. And he said, no, they do care about their crop. They do want them to be, because they get paid per chicken. They want them chickens to be safe. And so he argued a few cases, and yes, they have to grow chickens super fast because the demand for chickens is high. If they don't, then they cannot meet the demand. The supply must meet the demand, right? So, but the cruelty toward the chickens or baby chicks that was showed there is not true. How it shows them gathering them up in the middle of the night, shoving them into cages. He went, no one would treat them like that because, like I said, that's money. You got to treat your money good. You don't want to break, you're selling, computers. You wouldn't be just tossing the computers out of your second-story house into the trailer, right? Oh, well, a few will break, but that's okay. No, you want every single one of them, especially if you're going to know you're going to sell each one. You want everyone to be delivered with safety. So there's a few things that were embellished on that one, too, which you would expect, again, in a documentary. But Super Size Me 2 is well worth your time as well. I love both of those documentaries, and they're eye-openers. All right, so down to two more here. The number two one I have watched at least twice, I know for sure. These I've watched multiple times, these last two, number one and number two, and I will watch again. And the first one is from Ken Burns, the master of documentaries. And I don't even know if he's looking at it from a forced perspective. I can't say that about Mr. Burns because he is a really great historian and fantastic filmmaker. But his documentary series, if it says Ken Burns, I'm at least going to give it a try, even though I'm not interested. And I've seen a lot of his stuff that is good. But the Civil War by Ken Burns, I think this put him on the map, if I'm not mistaken, as a all-star documentary director. But it is just fantastic. He gives viewpoints from both sides of the war, which you don't see that much, and it is really intriguing. Now, yes, I am a history major, right? Just like knuckleball, there is a bias here, my friends. I'm a history major. I love history, and I love Civil War history. That's very interesting to me. Studied a lot about that back in high school and in college. So that there's a documentary called The Civil War. I remember watching this as a kid too, and just thinking, wow, this is really good. And I like the music and everything, and how it flows. A Ken Burns documentary when you watch it. He has definitely his signature on it. And it's just wonderful. Like I said, I know I've watched it twice. I may have watched it 3 times. I just can't recall. Same thing with number one. I know I've watched it twice and probably have watched it 3 times. But these are both of them that I plan to watch again someday because I just think that is a phenomenal series. It's a documentary series. There's a few of them. I don't know if they play on, public broadcasting station, PBS. Had to say it out before I knew the initials. How stupid is that? Anyway, I don't know if it's still playing on PBS every blue moon because they used to play it all the time because they didn't have much to play. And so Ken Burns' documentary series is on there. I'm sure they have tons of stuff to play now, but that Civil War documentary series, I know you can get it at your library. Every library carries it. Every library carries the next 2 documentaries I have. In fact, check your library for a lot of these documentaries because if you don't realize it, your library has also turned into a Blockbuster. Now that Blockbusters are gone away, they have a ton of DVD movies you can check out now, and that's really cool. I remember going when we were kids, we couldn't afford Blockbuster every night, so my mom would have us go to the library and we'd pick out a few VHSs, back in the day, VHS. And then she and Dad would get a VHS for them to watch. Well, they still do that with DVDs, and their collection is growing, all right? So go by the library. Check out your library for some of these DVDs. But I know you can get Civil War because that's probably in every library, and that's a really fantastic one. And the final one I want to talk about is also by Ken Burns. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Ken Burns, and this one I know I've seen twice, probably 3 times. It's just called Baseball. Big surprise, right? When you heard I liked Ken Burns and you know I love baseball, then it makes sense that I would love his documentary series called Baseball. Now, what you don't know, and I think the library has it. I remember watching these at the library the first 2 times. No, I've seen it 3 times because I rented it a long time ago as kids. We watched it. And then I rented it again at the years ago, back when my wife and I were going to the library a lot, and she was getting DVDs there. And this is back before digital was that big. And then I just recently watched it streaming. It was streaming somewhere. I was like, oh, I got to see this again, because it came out years later. He came out with it's a 9 DVD series, I think. Or 18, I can't remember, but it's each episode is called an inning. You know, first inning, second inning, third, fourth, fifth, and it starts off with anything happening between the 1900s. You know, early baseball. Then it goes from decade to decade, from 1900 to 1910 to 1910 to 1920, 1920 to 1930, and it is phenomenal. Even if you don't like baseball, I just think it's just so interesting going through, seeing how the game's developed, how the players are changing, how the game is changing. Oh my gosh, I love this. I love this documentary series so much. I find it so fascinating. Now, originally, if I remember right, it ended in the 70s. So yeah, that'd be right, because the 1800s was the first inning. The second inning was 1900 to 1910, and then after that, it went every decade. So it ended in the 1970s. That's because this came out, I think, in the early 90s or mid 90s back in the day. And later on in the 2000s, Ken Burns made a 10th inning DVD. In the 10th inning, it's a 2-part DVD. It says top of the 10th, bottom of the 10th, I think is what they're called. And the top of the 10th covers the 80s, and the bottom of the 10th covers the 90s. So there's the steroid, debacle there, or the big home run, I get. But yeah, the big home run derby between Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa that then led to steroids. Because baseball has a fascinating history. I mean, an unbelievable history. And for Americans, they have been baseball has really pioneered and defined us as a culture. It really has. I'm not just making that up. Baseball's always taken the lead on certain things. Baseball, when we're at war, baseball takes a step up and they continue on. When the Twin Towers fell, baseball came back because it had to, and it opened up in New York. It was the first, I think, public event to open up after the Twin Towers crisis there. And it's unbelievable that baseball keeps leading the way. That's why during this recent pandemic, I was really hoping that baseball would lead the way to reopen first, because we are always the first ones to go out there, the bold ones. And it hasn't happened as of this podcast. I'm recording this one a couple of weeks early, but it hasn't happened yet. But if it did and they have opened it up, well, good for baseball, because baseball should be first. Baseball should be the one that pioneers and says life is going to move on, and we are going to move on, getting back to normal, because that's always been baseball's role. And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful documentary series. I cannot suggest it enough. That is Baseball by Ken Burns. In fact, I'm not going to go into I could go into every Ken Burns, but that'd be another half hour. Check out anything Ken Burns. There you go. Morgan Spurlock, you can too. I like him, but yes, he does tweak the truth a little bit. And and Greatest Movie Ever Sold is probably an honorable mention, I guess, because it is funny as well, but nothing groundbreaking. So yeah, check out some documentaries there. But hey, let me know in the comments below, was there or is there a documentary series that I didn't mention that you absolutely love? Now, I've seen quite a few. I've seen Blackfish, about SeaWorld and stuff. So I do keep my eye out for documentaries here and there, and I have seen a ton of documentaries, but just my favorite ones I just wanted to list today. But if you have one that you know of, list in the comments below. Let me know about it. Maybe I've already seen it, but if not, I would definitely be interested in checking out, because I'm always looking through on the streaming sites. What do they have new in documentaries that I have not seen? Because, hey, they're just fun to watch. If you've never watched a documentary before, I think you should. I think it's well worth your time to check out a documentary, because like I said, they are sometimes brought to you from a forced perspective, but either way, they are very interesting to watch. Even the nature ones too. I've seen a bunch of those too, of course. I mean, hey, I grew up on National Geographic like everyone else, right? All right, folks, that's all the time I have for now. We'll see you next time on more Saturday Morning Samoflange.